Welcome back to another episode of the Zuriel Show, episode 31. We're joined in by Haley Gray. Haley, all the way from South Africa. We're in for an amazing treat this episode where we're having a slight shift from focusing on currently, Haley, we have an ongoing segment on the Zuriel Show known as Understanding Industry 4.0. But in this sense, we are still looking at that, but on having a focus on how can we really talk about youth empowerment when it comes to the digital space, and how can women ideally be the future? How can we look at females and the space within the tech space? You'll find that women have these barriers that are already existing, which limit them from becoming who they want to be. Now, I've already talked way too much for the intro, but Haley, introduce yourself to the people, who you are, and simply what you do.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's really great to be here and to talk about these very critical topics. I'm Haley Gray, and I'm an entrepreneur from South Africa, originally from Cape Town. I lead a business called Cut to Code, and Cut to Code is a software development firm. We specialize in operational excellence. Ultimately, what we really do is to help businesses streamline their processes and ensure that their teams and their businesses are as efficient as they possibly could be. Before this, I had created another software startup in Cape Town in 2010 with a previous partner called Forge Technologies, and that I exited in 2015. At the moment, we are in the process of productizing our business. So a very interesting space to be in, a challenging space to be in fact, because moving from a service-based business into a product-based business is quite a challenge. You need to find your niche market, you need to find your niche product, and it's quite a lot of strategic work that needs to be done. So we're in the process of productizing, stepping into new and different markets too, and we're expanding into Europe and into the US at the moment. I'm passionate about inclusion, digital inclusion, gender inclusion. I really think that Africa has so much potential. It's honestly our time to have these deep conversations so that we can define how it is that we're wanting to move forward and what the world is that we're wanting to create looks like. And I think only through unity will that really happen.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that well-rounded and really allowing us to, have a glimpse of your life, what you do, and what pushed you to doing what you do at the moment. So to kick it off, we ideally have something simple that we ask all our guests. We always ask, what's one piece of advice before getting to the main topic of the day? Of course, we like to focus on telling our guests stories, and that question that we usually provide is, what's one lesson, or more than one, that you learned in university, or as you call it in South Africa, varsity?
Yes.
What's one lesson that you learned then?
Oh, wow. I feel like I learn lessons every single day. And the one thing I find quite profound is the ability to surprise myself. So maybe this is not the right forum to discuss, but imposter syndrome is very real. And in all of the female groupings that I'm very much part of, I get involved in quite a few female circles and discussion groups, and it's something that really permeates to a lot of us, I think. And I'm sure that the same structure exists for men. And I think it's definitely a conversation that we should drive a little bit more. But the ability to surprise myself often is probably a lesson that I learn every single day. It's the ability to think that you're unable to do something or to be concerned about it, but to apply yourself and to actually overcome something. So I think that persevering through something that is unknown or challenging is really a life lesson. If I think about specific lessons, it's a little bit hard to pinpoint right this minute. And I'm sure that as we unfold in conversation, it will come to me. But wow, so many points of learning every single day. I think that life is a journey of learning. We need to constantly adapt and change to our environment, to the people around us, to the markets. I think COVID is a perfect example right now of being adaptable too. So yeah, adapt and change.
Excellent, excellent. And that phrase also couldn't be more timely as well, adapting and changing, because you'll find right now the ongoing transformation that's happening.
Yeah.
It's more or less sparing nobody, no industry, no level of no matter even if you're that individual who simply used to sell fruits,
Yeah.
you also need to adapt your way of operation. So it's that skill definitely is still relevant all around it. As a whole. Lovely. So to kick off the topic of the conversation of the day, how would you describe digital inclusion, or how would you describe digital inclusion in your own words?
Wow. Sure. Digital inclusion is it's a broad topic, and it's so necessary at the moment, because
Yeah.
it's the capability of giving someone or everyone the opportunity to engage in technology through hardware and connectivity, and also have the understanding through digital literacy. So it's maybe not articulated so well, but it's quite a critical point to make right now. So even though this is my synopsis for what it is, the terminology is, I just actually want to add to that. If we look at the state of the world right now, and particularly South Africa, I look at how economically challenging times are at the moment. And it's the same everywhere, yes. But the one thing I feel that we could obviously be a little bit more focused on is creating more digital skills, digital literacy, essentially, creating global marketplaces. Because by doing that, we're not limiting people from achieving work or achieving a means to earn an income in one environment. If someone has access to digital inclusion, and they are part of that ecosystem, they actually have the ability now to sustain themselves. There are loads of international marketplace environments. If you are able to do, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be an engineer and you need to code. That's really not what it means. We're moving toward an age where the majority of jobs are going to be digitally based. So it's really critical that we involve our people across the African continent into this conversation. Not even to mention the fact that as Africans, we are all already consuming all of these environments, right? We should have a better understanding of how it can work for us and benefit us. So creating a broader talent pool or skills pool of individuals who can contribute to the international stage for digital skills is quite important. So digital inclusion is really the starting point. And at the moment, we're not really creating enough of a momentum. I know in South Africa, we have loads of programs already happening. And so we've got great ICT programs happening through government agencies. We've got coding camps happening. Focus truly is in creating those digital skills. However, I don't necessarily think that we're focusing on it in a broad enough scope. We as a nation, as a continent, also need to become a little bit more literate on what it means to be consuming all of this digital products or services. And so it's also by including the masses in this conversation, it enables us to define the world that we're trying to create. It's not a means of just enabling the digital economy to run rampant and leave the lower income bracket of individuals out of everything. So technology has the means to really create inclusion, but it also has the means to widen the gap of the has versus the have-nots if we're not careful about it. So it's really important to be able to have these kind of conversations. And so I applaud you for having this topic on the table. I do think that youths need to participate, particularly people who come from environments who are not necessarily consuming the kind of technology that you and I may be consuming, because the reality is that the solutions exist inside of the environments that need to have solved problems, right? It's not necessarily you and me who is going to solve those problems, right? We need to enable people in environments to understand how they can unlock their own potential. And so that will only happen through the inclusion of these kind of environments. The problem, in my opinion, is infrastructure, lack of hardware, lack of connectivity. How do we solve that? It's a very, very big problem.
Yeah. Wow. There's a couple of things that come to mind. The first one being, I liked how you mentioned, or that the tail of the discussion was how it's really a complex problem. And I remember this quote that comes to mind, that when it comes to solving, let's just even talk about when it comes to education and how we can actually begin thinking about how can we digitize it in such a way that it can be, maybe let me just give you a quick statistic to put things into perspective. In 2020, during the pandemic, 85% of students within Kenya did not attend school. This was, because everything was just switched off. The whole system that existed before was switched off, and we don't know how to adapt in the right way. In addition to that, in order for a country to transform, the people have to transform first, which is another quote that comes to mind as well. Because you'll find that there is this ongoing transformation as a whole. But in order for us to move within it, the people cannot just be dumped into this system or into this new world of communication and expect it for it to just merge and just make sense and just move forward with it. So I think, that's some very interesting points. And I believe we'll also bridge into the next question that I had in mind.
May I just interject before you jump into that? I just want to add to what you had to say about education in Kenya. There's another point that I think I just want to raise. In South Africa, during COVID, I saw two groupings of friends and peers experience COVID in very different ways, right? And they were friends and peers who had their children in private schools, who were completely unaffected through COVID. They continued their academic year. They were ready for it. They were completely empowered to continue their education from the comfort of their home, right? And in fact, they will continue to excel because they have the tools that they need to excel. Nothing stops them from learning, from engaging, from participating. And that is because that private school that I had obviously gained some access to were already preparing their students, their parents, for digital engagement. They had already started taking like 50% of their courses online and engaging their students through virtual learning and in the school environment. So it enabled them to adapt really beautifully. And speak about the other side of the coin. Another grouping of individuals that I had engaged with, students had absolutely no access to anything, were completely confined to their homes, had physical books with no access to their teacher, having to take responsibility for the education themselves, and their parents having to step in. And of course, if you're a parent and you're not really au fait with mathematics or whatever it is that your child is really struggling with, how do you guide them? How do you participate? If you don't have an internet connection, you don't have the hardware to engage. So I think that I completely agree with you on what you've just said about we can't just put people into the environment. But I think that the reality is that a big portion of people are already inside of that environment, right? But not paying any mind to the individuals who don't have any access. So we need to ask ourselves the questions, how do we bridge that gap too? How do we bring people along for that conversation, for the ride, for them to participate, to be included?
Oh, very interesting. And I also couldn't agree more. And also, adds on to what you said, it leads to the furthering, it could lead to the furthering of that gap when we're not paying attention to the individuals, yeah, that are
Absolutely.
in.
And that in turn will create a bigger wealth divide, because at the end of the day, the individual who has the access to these tools is going to be the person who's able to understand what it means to work in a digital environment. It's the person who is going to be able to transfer their skills and work on an international stage, because that is actually where we're going.
Yeah.
Our borders are being loosened very much because of the digital economy. There is
Mm.
no reason for anyone, if you're working in the digital environment, there is no reason for you to choose to live and be wherever you are right now. I mean, right now, I am on a farm outside of a city, leading an
Mm.
entire software
Mm.
team, right?
Mm.
With
Yeah.
no need to be inside of a boardroom with them.
Yeah.
So we really need to ask these very tough questions about how are we going to involve people and bring them into the conversation, so they too have the opportunity to move forward and be able to earn an income and be able to control their lives. And yeah.
Lovely, lovely, and excellent to as well to wrap up that specific point. Right. So the next thing I want to look at is when it comes to women in technology. What do you feel are common challenges, maybe that uh, you saw within your life when probably after varsity? What are some common challenges that you went through that you feel need to be addressed or simply spoken on?
Okay. Thank you for raising that. I think that there are probably going to need like 10 or 15 minutes for this point.
Yeah, yeah, no, do take your time. Do take your time.
I'm just teasing you. Wow, it's such a big topic, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really feel like it's a conversation that so many people are having in
Mm,
very different verticals, right? So, firstly, I want to just remove it out of the technology sector, because I think that
okay, okay,
this is a conversation that needs to happen across sectors.
okay.
I think that I have met some incredible women who work really hard, who are very smart, and who have definitely dealt with, I guess, condescending behavior from men.
Mm,
What I am also finding are a number of things, because this is a conversation I get involved with quite often. I meet a lot of executives who are conscious of this conversation right now. They
mm,
want to participate and they want to do better, but they're not really so sure. So they're awake to the problem, but they're not so sure about what
mm,
kind of behavior constitutes bad behavior. What
mm,
is it inside of what I am doing on a day-to-day basis that may leave someone to feel that they are not included because of their gender, right?
mm.
Uh, and then there are others who act in a particular way and it's 100% unconscious. They're not even aware
Yeah.
of their biases, right? That they've
Mm,
kind of been
yeah.
taught that they are um, more powerful than women, smarter than women, or whatever the case may be. I think as we're progressing into this world of inclusion, I think it really warrants deep conversation and also introspection. Because at this particular point, I think we all need to question our own biases. And if you meet anyone who says to you, I don't have any biases at all, that's absolute nonsense, because
Mm,
we all have biases, we all carry them. We are inundated with media every single day
mm,
and messaging online, and it leans towards specific biases. And quite frankly, women are still depicted in a specific way
mm,
in media. So, we need to be, I don't want to say sensitive because that's not the right word, but I think we need to be conscious of where this conversation needs to go and how we can have it in a constructive way that brings everybody into a safe space to kind of talk about this and define what this is going to look like when we come together in unity, like when we embrace our diversity, when we look at the strengths that we all bring to the table, when we understand that we're stronger together versus in separation, right? But I think that it's quite a big conversation, and it's a conversation that needs to happen in every single sector, particularly in technology, working in the software space. I have been very, very blessed and fortunate to be surrounded by men who have clearly been raised by men and women who understand what gender equality is about, right? I've never worked with someone where I felt undermined or pulled into a different kind of environment. However, I have felt that in a client setting. And that's very, very uncomfortable because, and I'll give you an example. In my previous software company, we worked with a very big corporate. I'm not going to mention any names because I think that would be pretty unfair, because this individual is not a representation of the entire corporate. And I know that this corporate is doing a lot of work inside of the corporate to have discussions about gender equality, gender and race equality, in fact. So I would applaud them for that. And I'm sure that I met this executive at a particular point when they were not doing that work, right? And I remember him saying to me, we were working on a software project, a custom built for them, very, very big project. And when your projects with clients are in the millions, you're careful to react to certain things, right? And that is what's uncomfortable about these kind of situations. It's the power balance. It's not always about the gender balance. It's really the power balance. And someone bullying because they actually have the upper hand, essentially. And I remember this executive saying to me, because one of our engineers was this brilliant female engineer, and I mean, I have absolute respect for her. She's just absolutely brilliant. And he was confused about why we were working, why he needed to work with a female engineer. And his response to me was, women don't belong in engineering. They belong in project management because they make better project managers and they can't code. And my response.
That's very straightforward. Very straightforward.
Okay. And what was shocking to me about him was his wife was also a top executive. She was doing very big work about inclusion, about women taking a seat at the table. And so that really confused me, and it left me with the inability to deal with that situation, because that client had so much power over our business at the time. It was not something we could address. It was something I had addressed after we finished working with them and after the money was in our bank account. But the thing is that builds to a larger problem. If we are silenced to not even say something to the point of, well, I'm sorry, but that is a little bit incorrect, or not even a little bit incorrect, but what you're saying is, is so beyond unacceptable, and can we discuss this, right? I think you disempower people through a power struggle too, and it's not always only gender related. I think that there are so many things that we need to navigate right now, and we need to almost kind of create this manifesto, right? As people who are stepping into these structures right now, the people who are directing the way we're going forward, we need to decide how we're going to continue on and how we're going to work together and what that looks like for us. But I also come across so many other men who are shocked by other men's behavior, who are aggressively attacking that behavior. And my immediate response is, let's not be aggressive to each other about anything. Let's step into conversation, because if we're not hurting each other and we are open for this conversation, it's an important conversation to have. And surely we should be able to engage each other and say, this kind of
Yeah.
behavior is unacceptable, and this is why it's unacceptable. Can you think about how that action may have kind of caused this reaction? And how do you think that we should kind of structure, let's say, this team or the way we're engaging each other? I think what it would do, it would remove the blurred lines of how we're needing to engage each other. The other thing I think that is something that we should maybe foster is that women should be employed in technology because they're women and we need to get quotas up, right? That's not why women should be employed in technology. Women are excellent within technology, and maybe this is a very broad element to add. And so for all of the women out there who disagree with me, I understand. But what I see in the women that I work with every day is that they have a real sense of understanding the human element to the technology that we're building. I don't necessarily always see that in the men. A lot of our male engineers are coding and just like super focused on what it is that they need to achieve. The female engineers that we're working with, and even the project managers, are taking the human aspects of what it is that we're building into account and asking questions, but why are we doing this in this way? So it's quite an interesting thing. I think that removing ourselves from the gender discussion and rather a diversity discussion, I think that we all produce much better work when there's a diversity scenario. It's like when we're a diverse team, we have different backgrounds, different experiences. We don't create group thinking patterns, right? Yeah. We look at problems from different angles, and also you are consumer centric because there are different kinds of consumers. And so I think it lends itself to a better strength.
Okay, lovely. I can't even think of a better way of dissecting that, because on my end, I was just thinking about how can we, because as you said, it's a very complex topic. Nobody really has the answers. It's more of an ongoing discussion. Yeah. And it's almost like maybe I can just frame it like this also to provide structure also for the audience and maybe someone who's listening. All you say is a worthwhile end goal, or what should be the end goal when it comes to these discussions? Because yes, I believe also the discussions are they're the right place to get started. But from the discussions, maybe I can provide also my 2 cents, because this is something also we're chiming in. What would be the end goal? Would it be that we have the same level of entry jobs as men, same level of promotions as men, same, what do you feel is the end goal in terms of these discussions? I can try clarify that if it's not too clear, but
I think a good starting point would be equal pay. Literally it's a good starting point, because I think we undervalue a lot of what women are bringing to the table with the equal pay discussion, even though they're doing the same amount of work. And then, I think that this is also really something that will benefit men and not just women, because this is a much broader discussion. We can go on about this. But, in a corporate environment, why are women seen as the caregivers of their children? Like, automatically, it's assumed that it's a woman who is going to put her career on hold. And not that any should be putting their career on hold, but parenting should be an equal task, right? Thankfully, I feel like I know so many progressive men who are very happy to be part of that kind of discussion and want to parent equally, right? I mean, when you look at Scandinavia, and I could get this so wrong, I've just read so many different articles about men taking time off to parent and women going to work. I just don't see the scenario of us doing that in Africa just yet. And I think that there's a lot of shame behind that, because we have this mindset of this role that a woman holds, right? And there's a lot of traditionalism in that. And not that we need to break that down. I just think that we need to create a world where there's equal opportunity, right? So if you have the opportunity to apply for a job because you're a male, I have the same opportunity to apply for the job because I'm a female, and we've got equal qualifications and equal contribution. That should be a discussion. It shouldn't be looked upon as negative because a woman who is going to step into a particular role is going to have a baby, so she is a liability. That's just, we absolutely cannot see people's value attached to that. You know, we live in a time where people add value almost instantaneously when they step into an environment. I know an incredible woman who is a top executive at a very big telco. She has had her baby and is literally working with her baby on her arm thanks to COVID, right? And her colleagues were really happy with that. They didn't feel like it was a negative aspect. And then I've come across the exact same scenario on the male side of things. COVID's also really allowed me to see so many fathers step up in parenting. It's actually quite incredible. The amount of video calls or meetings that I've had with fathers actually having to still look after a baby while they're in conference has been almost heartwarming for me. Because that's stuff that women deal with every single day, right?
Yeah. And I really like how you've ideally coined it in the, as you said, it's a very complex, very broad discussion, but you've also touched on the main points. And yeah, gender in terms of having equal pay is definitely a worthwhile starting point, because you go to work because there's that aspect of you providing value to the individual, and you're providing the same amount of value, if not more, yet you are not being viewed the same. So there's that aspect in which someone doesn't feel deserving, and not that I understand it yet or know what it's like as a whole, but just also from basic statistics and also stories that I come across as a whole. Recently, just before the talk, actually, I was checking up some stats when it comes to the space as a whole, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but CIO Africa published a recent research study, and within it, 74% of women claim that they've had to work more than their male counterparts.
I can believe that.
Yeah, to ideally amount or to view it as the same amount of work. Is that something that you share? Is that
I can honestly understand why. I mean, I don't know the stats. I've not read the article. I'd love to read it. But if I just look at my journey so far, I honestly see that. I see women putting in a lot more to be noticed, to be recognized, to be allowed to have a seat at the table. But once again, I think it goes to our biases, like who is the gatekeeper, right? My other issue is the fact that often when there is a gatekeeper who is another woman, it becomes even harder to gain access. And so we must break down these barriers of being in competition, because it's not all women. I have particularly experienced that a lot of the time, and I think particularly in the technology sector, when you're the only woman in the boardroom, you're already challenged for your own seat. So instead of making another seat for someone else who is from the same gender, there's almost like a sense of which one of us are going to belong here versus we can both belong here, and let's kind of create space for each other. I have also seen that, and that's a reality. But I also see so many incredible women who are part of different ecosystems that I'm part of, who have made a seat available for me at the table. So it's, we've got a lot of psychology to uncover. We've got a lot of work to do. And I think that we shouldn't be angry about it. We should be progressive about it, because this is a conversation that is, I mean, how many generations in are we discussing? We are progressing. We are moving forward. We're not going backward. I mean, it was the 60s when women were still, really focused on being housewives and
Mm,
not grabbing careers. It's not that many years. Yes, we need to progress and progress faster, but I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that we need to understand how we're going to change that narrative, how we're going to have the conversation, and what that looks like. And it's not a singular conversation. It's not a conversation that's happening only from a female perspective. It's going to take men like yourself and
mm,
loads of other men also in the
mm.
corporate sector, making
Yeah.
space for women and challenging other men when they see men acting in a way
Mm,
that's unacceptable, but
agreed.
challenging with a solution, going, man, that behavior wasn't really okay, and this is why, and you should maybe consider doing these things, because we have to educate each other. We don't all have the answers. You do not know what you do not know. So
100%.
yeah, we need to come together to actually solve together.
Lovely stuff. Lovely, lovely stuff. Really, we've talked about a lot that I actually look forward to unpacking. Also, watching through just to digest information much, much more. But as a whole, I've really enjoyed the discussion. But for the very, very last question of the day, we ask our guests once again the very same question: what is one piece of advice that you would give to your 20-year-old self if you had the opportunity to call her or simply travel back in time?
Wow. I would probably say, it's something that I've had to work on so hard, is do not minimize yourself to make other people feel comfortable. Um, I think women have a tendency to do this a lot. So when you've got the answers and you want to present the answer in that boardroom, or you are in an environment and you want to share your knowledge or your opinion, share it. And of course, you share it in a respectful manner, always taking other people into account. But you should
Mm,
never minimize yourself for others. I did that for many years, lost my voice, or really underestimated my value. And this is where the imposter syndrome that I was talking about in the beginning comes from, right?
mm.
Like, you're constantly questioning what your ability is, what your value is. You need to trust in that. So the minute you start minimizing yourself, you start having this scenario in your head going, okay, but like, can I do that, or shouldn't I do that? Or you need to 100% be you. No one else can be you. So it doesn't have to be in an aggressive and ugly manner, but absolutely shine your light. We are all here to bring our gifts to the world. And if we're
Yeah,
minimizing ourselves, we're not doing that.
lovely, lovely. And as well, very, very profound. Something as well I can relate to on my end. Very, very, very insightful. Yeah, pretty much that is the end of the show. I've learned a lot in my end. I as well look forward to having you on the show in the future, because this is something that I look forward to having it as an ongoing series as well in the very near future, and have it also involving not just me, but discussion in which I can invite 3 to 4 different women who are simply in the space. They don't exactly have to, as you rightfully said, have to be in technology, but they could be in different industries. And yeah, set that up as maybe
Wonderful.
I'm actually just pitching to you. Maybe let me just put it like that.
No, I'm
But
in.
yeah,
I'm totally in, and I
thank you.
absolutely want to introduce
Thank
you
you.
to a bunch of other women and men who are
Yeah,
actively participating in this conversation.
yeah.
The other thing I want to suggest is perhaps what
Mm,
we could do from these conversations is to
yeah.
create a almost a manifesto, right? Like
Mm,
uh, a little tangible something that can
mm,
be read, can be looked at, can be printed, because I think we need the tools. We're not enabled with all the tools to be able to solve these kind of problems, and
yeah.
we need to kind of create almost a KPI. We need a
One
goal.
hundred percent. That's the thing. That's also what I was thinking about when it comes to the outcomes of the discussions.
Yeah,
Because then, as you're now saying, it's something worth measuring. It's something
yeah.
realistic that we're driving towards. So yeah, definitely really enjoyed the discussions. If there's, and you have one more thing, was there anything in your mind that you'd like to say to the audience as we wrap up the episode?
Um, Actually, yes. Firstly, thank you so much for having me. This has been really good to do. It's me really stepping out of my comfort zone because I feel very challenged to do live discussions and be
Mm,
recorded. So thank you very much for the opportunity. Um,
absolutely.
if there's anything that I can leave any of us, it's the fact that we are walking around experiencing things and having the ability to solve problems, right? We live on the African continent. There is a lot to solve. And by the mere fact that there's a lot to solve, it means that there's a lot of opportunity.
Mm,
So I would love to just ask everybody to walk around with your eyes wide open and look at those things that you think that you need to solve. That, in fact, might be your next opportunity to create your next product, your next startup.
mm,
Um, we have the ability to connect with each other and share skills, to share knowledge, to share experience. Bringing those problems into those kind of circles is really an absolute opportunity.
yeah,
I'd love to be able to see us solving a lot more.
lovely stuff. And as well, very, very timely as a whole. Haley, thank you very, very much for taking time out of your schedule to be here. We're very, very grateful as well. This discussions as well is how you can say it's laying a foundation as well to our upcoming summit on April 9th. We're hosting the Young Women in East Africa Summit.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, this is ideally something that we're really excited to push forward, and really grateful that you actually came in the absolute, if you may call it, the best time possible. So
Great.
thank
Thank
you
you
very
so
much.
much for having me. I really appreciate it. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you very much. And for the audience members, be sure to like and subscribe if you find value in the episode, and share it with a friend if you believe they'll find value in it. Until next time, see you all. Goodbye.